Welcome to Town Talk, the official podcast of the Town of Stephenville, where community conversations happen. I'm Merrilee Joy Castillo, Communication Manager at the town, and this podcast takes place in the chamber at Town Hall. We share updates, ideas, information about what's happening in our community. And joining me today is the Town of Stephenville's Manager of Planning and Development, Matt Sims. Welcome.
Hey, Merrilee. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Matt. I thought it'd be a great idea to actually get you on today. And this is permit season, this is building season, and of course we've had some water advisories lately and lots of things happening in the town that you can kind of give residents a heads up on and give them information on. So I thought, hey, to break up our so far we've been kind of focusing on a lot of the tourism, and we'll get back to that next week. But I figured, let's break it up and get some information in there that residents always want to know. We get lots of calls here at the town office, lots of questions. So why not break it up and bring you in?
Perfect.
All right. So first of all, I guess a lot of people are wondering about water quality, and how water is monitored here at the town and in the province.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So it's just starting on the provincial level. 2 departments actually test our water here in the town of Stephenville. Water Resources does all of the inorganics and organics. Service and L actually does our micro. Water Resources does it quarterly. So they'll come out once every 3 months and do the tests around different areas of the town. And Service and L does it monthly for micro. Our town staff actually checks the chlorine residual every single day up at the water facility, just ensure that we're meeting our requirements for the chlorination system. One of the interesting things, though, about our water system is that it's deep aquifer wells, which is nice. The cost on the taxpayers is a lot less when you have well water compared to surface water. If anyone's familiar with St. John's does surface water for their water quality, and with that comes a larger facility. A lot of people, what people don't realize is that when you're doing surface water, you get a lot of dissolved organics, it's called tannins into waters and things like that. And when you chlorinate that, it creates disinfectant byproducts, which are actually carcinogens. So we're fortunate in the town that we use groundwater because we don't get the dissolved organics. So we don't need to treat that before we chlorinate it. If anyone's familiar with the St. John's area, Windsor Lake, the facility is massive. Bay Bulls, the facility is massive because they need to take in all of their water. They need to strip out all of the dissolved organics before they chlorinate it. And the cost on their taxation base is a lot higher for water. So we're pretty fortunate like that. By having groundwater, we use the ground essentially as a natural filtration. So it takes everything out and all the micros, some organics and things like that. Some of the things that come that are a bit of a disadvantage is a lot of the scaling that people see. But that stuff is, it's not harmful or anything, but, you just
have to clean your kettle.
You have to clean your kettle a lot more, right, with those. But no, we're pretty fortunate to have the system we had. I was fortunate that I did a graduate level diploma through Marine Institute after I graduated from MUN in water quality. And part of the requirements of that schooling was that we had to get some on-the-job training. So I did mine actually at Water Resources. And part of that is that I reviewed all of the water quality reports from the lab that Water Resources had for all municipalities in the province. And obviously when you're in there, you take interest to Stephenville and Kippens just being from the area. And we're very fortunate to have the water that we have. We have some of the best quality water in the province. So, for residents out there who, may be concerned, our water is tested regularly and it's at a really high quality.
For sure. And I know one of the things that you've been involved with since joining us here at the town is new technology.
Yes.
And one of the new technologies, why don't you talk to us about, is it the Astera?
Astera, yes. It's a little bit over my head, the technology. It's definitely designed by people a lot smarter than myself. It was actually our economic development manager, Mike, that discovered Astera. So I can't take credit for finding it. I got to give that to Mike. But essentially, the basics of it is that they use an L-band scan. Don't ask me to explain that. I don't understand that part. But potable water, what we call chlorinated water, has a certain polarity. So this L-band will actually scan the ground, and the change in polarity that returns back to a satellite actually can find leaks into the ground in our system. So essentially with this technology, Astera will fly the satellite over the town of Stephenville with their L-band scan, reflects to the ground. If there's any leak in our municipal infrastructure, it will change the polarity of the L band back to the satellite to read to show us where leaks are into our municipal infrastructure. Where this is very important is if we have a water main leak, we got to send the guys out. If it's not coming out of the ground, they got to chlorate it, they got to find it, so they're using sound. So there's often times that there's leaks ongoing that we don't find. So with the Astera technology, it actually helps us prioritize our work with the public works guys to show them exactly where the high priority leaks are into the ground. We can set a schedule, we can go out and we can fix these leaks instead of running around trying to find it. Basically, if you look at a municipal average with a lot of municipalities, you'll find probably about 0.5 leaks per week. With Astera, you're kind of up to 3.5 leaks per week because you can actually go down and find exactly where it's to. And
before they become a problematic issue.
Before they become a bigger issue. The interesting thing about Astera, they've done about 800 municipalities in the States and a bunch in Europe, but we were one of the first, if not the first in Canada, to actually implement this technology. So it was kind of cool. I know Astera was having conversations with the city of Calgary, the city of Toronto, and the town of Stephenville at the time. So it's pretty
Wow.
cool.
It's pretty high-tech technology. And we've noticed, I think, that the reduction in problematic leaks has certainly come down in the last, say, 6 to 8 months for sure.
We've really reduced our consumption on water, which is very important. I think we're down to probably about 400 gallons per minute compared to what we were last year, just from the Astera. So it's a big savings, and that those savings are just down the line. It's easier. Our system is a lot easier on our pumps. We're using less chlorination, less power. So even the cost itself reduces with that, and we're being better stewards of our water.
Yeah, and of course, everybody knows that Stephenville does have a lot of aging infrastructure.
Yes.
So why don't we talk a bit about the aging infrastructure and plans for, I guess, getting things more up to date?
Yeah.
Some of the plans for that.
If people didn't realize, we had Main Street project on the go.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure everybody in town and out of town have noticed that.
Yeah, and we're happy that that one is just clued up. But the infrastructure on Main Street, for example, was put in, I think, in the 1950s.
Wow.
Right, so it's quite old. It's quite
aged. Over 70 years old.
It's over 7 years old. So we apply through the municipal capital works projects. Everything really on the town side it's a lot more, and areas are probably more aged than what it was on the base side just during the time when the Americans were here. But what we do, we pick areas where we kind of have a good history and background on the age of the infrastructure and where a lot of leaks have occurred in the past. Those areas usually get selected or prioritized for municipal capital works projects, and we kind of go from there. And we fix the leaks where we can.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know that one of the things that a lot of residents or concerns a lot of residents when we do have a water leak or a water repair is when they see a boil advisory.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk a bit about how those or why those are put in place and, give our residents a little bit more information about those.
So the boil advisories are held by the province. So essentially, anytime that you do work on a pipe or an infrastructure, you're compromising the integrity of your system. Because of that, once the leak is fixed, we need to take a water sample in that area and send it to the province to determine if the water is clear for consumption. The reason why for a lot of the delays is if the work is ongoing and is continuing, we need to once the work is actually completed, we need to get that water sample to our lab and get the results sent to the province to get the boil advisory lifted.
Right, which is what we're seeing in the case of places like Rose Avenue and Main Street, because it has been an ongoing project.
It's been an ongoing project and it's new infrastructure. So, all the water quality testing is very important. So once we get the lab results back, the boil advisory comes off right away.
And I guess, what happens, I know, our public works department are constantly, they're there. They're sometimes
awesome.
Working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, rain, snow, sleet, hail. It doesn't matter what the weather conditions. They're certainly there to help out.
Yeah.
And what happens, tell us a bit about, emergency repairs. So
Yeah.
sometimes people, like, it's nice, like you mentioned with the Astera, sometimes we can find the leaks
Yeah.
before they happen.
Yeah.
But then you have times where you have unplanned
Yeah.
water
Yeah.
shutoffs.
They usually happen Friday afternoons.
It's funny how that works, but
or
yes.
Saturdays. But no, like our public works team, they're awesome. The experience in those operators, they know the job very, very well. We're very fortunate to have the public works staff that we actually have there. But something, they're very responsive. We've had call outs over the winter. If anyone remembers, we had a big break there on Hanson. But I think that was like Saturday night. It was snowing.
It was a horrible weekend.
Yeah, and it was one of our water mains, and it, like, you would have lost water, I lost water
Exactly.
with that one, and I think they had that back on in a couple hours. And you're talking about, that was discovered Saturday at 5, and I think probably by midnight that night everything was back in the ground and fixed. And they're all at home with their families and come out into the to the nasty weather that was there that day. So
exactly.
yeah, they're very responsive and ready to go when something happens.
Yeah. So what are some of the challenges you think that in your position and within the public works, like some of the challenges that you face with dealing with the public?
I think sometimes lack of understanding and communication, like, we get it, right? Like when you lose water's such an important piece of, what you have going on. Also, and sometimes that takes some time, like it might take a few hours for something to, to come back on. But it's just the understanding that, our team is very responsive. They try to move as quick as they can, but when you're in a hole and you got water coming up and you're trying to deal with a major leak or a sewer backup, sometimes things just take a little while to get fixed, and not everything is a perfect situation. Sometimes that you might know that there's a leak in the ground and you're digging around and you're trying to find it. It's not always in the right place all the time. And they work in a lot of like tight areas sometimes, like in the middle of town, sometimes that water lines run through people's backyards. They're not always off the street. So they got to get equipment in and trying to find exactly where it's due sometimes. So sometimes it takes a little bit longer than we would like, but it's just, when some of those things happen, there's always somebody on it right away.
Right.
And it's just, sometimes it just doesn't work as quick as we like.
Right. And of course, with aging infrastructure as well, I mean, you might have a valve, for example, and with the valve being probably 70 years old in some of the areas of town, when you turn that valve off, something might happen where it breaks or it just it has to be replaced. So then you kind of, one incident moves into another incident and creates a little bit of more of a timeline.
And they didn't keep good records back in the 50s and 60s, we found.
But we're in the process of fixing that now.
Yes, we are.
We've got our GIS tech.
Yep.
Mark McGuire.
We're very fortunate to have someone like Mark. I've worked with a couple of GIS people over the years, and Mark is very, very good at what he does with GIS. So the town's very fortunate to have someone like that looking at our GIS. We've introduced a new GIS system here. We're using Esri. We didn't always have Esri, but Esri is used all over the world, and they're the leaders in GIS, which is nice. We built a new town map that shows all of our infrastructures, fire hydrants. We've gone through and tested all of our hydrants, and we now have we know which ones are out of service and which ones are in service, which is communicating to the fire department, which is extremely important for Don and his crew. We've actually made the GIS public recently, so if people are not aware of that, they can go on to the public version of the GIS. There's no personal information, but you can look at, your home, your parcel, the rough parcel. Like, we don't have all the survey information, but we do the best we can with that.
Give you a general idea.
Right? And you can see where the water infrastructure is, kind of, if we do have the information, kind of where the laterals are coming into your home for water and sewer as well.
Yeah, and they can find that, of course, on our town website. Do a search, put in your address, put in your neighbor's address, and you can judge or click on the
Yep.
different layers, find out what you want to
Yep.
find out.
Yeah, there's a lot of good planning pieces on that for the public too. So you can see what zone you're in. So if you're a developer and you're looking at, buying a piece of land in Stephenville, you can go through our GIS map. You can see what the zoning is, where the water and sewer is to. You can see the size of the lot. There's a little measuring tool there as well. So for planning perspective, you're looking at building a home, building a shed, things like that. It's a nice tool.
So we're moving into permits now and more
Yes.
specialties of your department.
Yep.
So what are some of the things that residents and businesses, what are some of the types of things that they're going to need a permit for or they're not going to need a permit for?
That's a really good question. We spent the last year just kind of sizing up our permit system and, what is required, what's not required, and having a lot of conversations internally. So a prime example is if you're building a fence and you have an older fence and some of the fence boards are rotted and things like that, and you just want to replace them, we don't require a permit for that.
Right.
But if you're going to make your fence longer or bigger, we would require it. So basically what we say, and if there's structural changes to whatever you're building, we require a permit.
Right. So if I have a 8x8 patio on the back of my house and now I want to make it a 12x14 patio.
Yes.
I'm definitely going to need a permit.
You definitely need a permit.
But if I just have a couple of boards that are starting to rot out a bit, I can certainly go and replace those as long as I'm not changing the size of my patio.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And what about for painting?
For painting, you don't need a permit.
Don't need a permit for painting,
Nope.
inside or out?
No. And if sometimes people do feel like that they like to get a permit, you can still get one. It's just complimentary. It takes us a couple of minutes. Suzanne out front, she's awesome. So she can put that together even quickly for that. And, there's not a long wait. And then that's one thing that we've, heard from feedback from the residents is, how long it takes to get permits. We've really reduced it. Normally you come and get a permit, it's within a few days. And, if you got a contractor coming out, we do prioritize those things. So just let us know.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about for businesses? Like what about for businesses who want to do some upgrades or repairs to their business?
Businesses is different because depending on what they're doing, they can fall under ServiceNL. And we had a little chat with ServiceNL last week and a bit of a training session for us and the staff and really having a conversation with them what their requirements are. So, for example, if you're a business owner who wants to put in more accessibility and you want to put in an accessible ramp leading up to your building, you do require to go through ServiceNL. We have the forms here, so you don't need to be going and looking through the government website trying to find them. We have them out front, and we're here to kind of point you in the right direction for ServiceNL. One important piece for ServiceNL that they brought up, and I think this is an important for all businesses, is that ServiceNL also gives you a bit more liability. Right. And they really stressed that to us last week. So if you say you build, an accessible ramp and it's not built to code and something happens, you're liable. But if you submit your plans to ServiceNL and you get a permit from the town of Stephenville, and unfortunately if something did happen, you do have that piece that shows you that it was built to code.
Right.
So, and that was the big piece from ServiceNL. I know ServiceNL can take some time, and that was the reason why we met with them, is to ensure that we can give advice to business owners, the proper advice on how to properly complete them, what are the requirements, just so we can speed up the process for them as well. So,
right. And what about for business owners who just want to clean up around their property and maybe paint their sign or paint their step?
So we actually, on the last permit fee, so any type of minor renovations a business owner does that's below $25,000 is actually a complimentary permit from the town of Stephenville.
Wow. So how do they go about getting this permit?
So they just get an application form, which we revamped the application form this year. It's fillable now. It's not faded.
Right. And you can actually do this all online, like you mentioned, just fill it in and submit.
You can fill it all in and then just submit to myself and the permit email that's there. And you can come in and pay for it if it requires payment, or you can just pay over the phone. You don't even have to come in anymore if you don't want to.
Wow.
Yeah.
And for the complimentary, same
thing. Yeah. And we can email it to you, scan it and email it to you. Yeah.
Certainly making things more accessible for people, residents and businesses who don't have the time to come in or don't, maybe they have challenges of getting here.
Yes, exactly.
So now this is things that they can do online or over the phone and get their permit straightened out.
Yep, exactly. So we're trying to make it a bit easier. We're trying to reduce the times it takes to get a permit back. I know trying to line up contractors for doing some work sometimes can be last minute because they're extremely busy as well. So we understand that, and we don't want to hold anyone up from getting their work done.
And how long, like if I come up and I get a permit, how long is my permit valid for?
For you?
Okay, for a resident, let's say.
You have a full year to start the work, and then we can renew it for another year within that year. So say for example, if you come in and you get a development permit from us to build a new home, and you also want to build a detached garage, but the home takes a long time, you're getting to the end of the year, you don't get your garage built, that's okay. Just come and let us know. We can extend it for you for another year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I guess there are so many different things that people were wondering about, and we do have a lot of the information now on our website and on our Facebook page. And why don't you talk about some of the misconceptions, I guess, about the department, like that people have?
A lot of times, like we get interesting ones, is like, why did you cancel this permit, or why did council decline this permit? Sometimes a lot of the rumors get out there and we haven't even received the permit.
Right.
One important note is that, if it's a compliant permit and there's no discretionary, it doesn't need to go to council. For us to decline a permit, it has to go to council.
Right.
Because that is discretionary. So if there's ever a permit that's, for a development or whatever that's been declined, it comes to the public table. So it is very transparent. So if people do have, questions around that, they can just reach out and ask, say, was this declined or not? And we can discuss them to the best we can without, invading privacies and things like that. But if something does get declined, it has to come to the council table.
So what would be the type of things that would see a permit being declined?
So some things would be if it's outside of our development regulations. So we have, setbacks and stuff. So say, for example, somebody wanted to build a structure that was too close to a neighboring structure.
Right.
So, we would say, you need to move it or whatever. But if there was just no workaround with that application that they couldn't move the structure, we would actually have to bring it back to the table, talk about it, bring it for discretionary and then see what council's opinions on that is, right?
Right. So let's talk about the different types of permitting, I guess. And like you're mentioning discretionary, like if somebody comes in and they're just looking for a permit to expand on their deck, for example, that's not something that has to go to council.
No.
So what type of things do we have to bring to the council table? Like, let's talk about discretionary permits. Like, what is that? Yeah,
so something would be, so we just got our cluster development regulations approved. So essentially what that is that it allows for more infilling. The town needs a lot of, more affordable housing, more senior housing, and just more density overall. So if you're a developer and you're going to submit plans to our cluster development, that's all discretionary.
Right.
So when you're looking at, say, if you're going to do a 7-plex, a senior 7-plex, some things we're going to look at is, fire life safety. So things like that from the National Building Code ensure that the fire truck can get in and turn around and come back. But with that 7 unit, it doesn't necessarily fit. It fits our cluster development, but doesn't fit our development regulations. The way we worded it is that it would have to come back to council for final approval. Kind of the reason for that, it kind of allows everybody to have a view on it, give their feedback and their comments on it, because council will be looking for things important like fire life safety and things like that. How's it going to affect the neighborhood and the neighboring residents for that development? So all those things are important to have vetted through the table and have the conversations on.
Right. So what about if somebody's building a house? How does that go? Like, I know there's inspections and things, and if somebody's building or buying a house, let's talk about those permits.
Yeah. So if you're coming in to get a development permit, you submit your plans on where you're going to be placing your home to. We'll actually come out and check the location of your foundations and make sure that it meets our development regulations. If you're building within an older area of town where the setbacks are a little bit different, something like that would require discretionary of council, because normally we would require the 8-meter setback from the road. Some areas in town, it's a little bit closer, like, 5 or 6. So something like that, we would look at it and say, okay, this doesn't meet our development regulations, but council can make approval for discretionary because the neighboring homes are,
5 or 6
Yeah,
meters instead of
they're
the 8.
existing non-conforming based on our development regulations.
Right. And what about if I purchase a home?
Yep.
Or somebody
Yep.
purchases a home?
Yep.
I know that there's like an inspection and things that have to take place. So how does that all work?
Yeah, so the town, we don't do any home inspections, but we do compliance certificates. So what ends up happening is if you say, for example, in that situation, you're buying a home, your legal counsel will reach out to the town and ask to get a compliance certificate. So with that, we basically view the property. Sometimes you get situations, especially in the older parts of town, where we'll come back to the council and say this is an existing non-conforming structure, and that's okay. It's just a letter indicating that it's just not compliant to our development regulations today. So if you had to build that home today, you just wouldn't be able to build it in the location that is at.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you can't continue to get permits. It doesn't mean that you can't make extensions to it. It's just doesn't meet our. It's just grandfathered in, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
And I hear often occupancy permits.
Yes. Yeah.
So how about those?
Occupancy permits are required for all commercial and residential. So when you buy a home, you just come in and you get your occupancy permit. Very simple. Commercial spaces as well. With the commercial space or with apartments that are 3 or more require a fire life safety inspection from the fire chief. So if you come in, you get those. We just basically get you to fill out a form and we send it over to the fire department. The fire department comes in and does the fire life safety inspection and mentions if you need to get smoke detectors or anything like that. Then once the fire chief clears it, it comes back to myself and we just sign off the permit.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess like for businesses, if
Yeah.
there's a new business owner looking to come into town,
Yeah.
how does that?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So if you're a business owner coming into town and you're looking at purchasing a commercial space, you have to go through Service NL to get your change of occupancy, and we do have those forms here. Service NL is takes some time, but one thing that's important to note is you need to get the change of occupancy in so you can ensure that the building's been registered with Service NL. Because what ends up happening is that if you plan on doing any developments down the road, say, for example, you need to go get a electrical permit. We've, talking to Service NL is they've actually tied the business registration numbers or the building registration numbers to your electrical permit.
Okay.
So if you don't go through Service NL, you can't get electrical permit.
Right.
If you're someone who's going to, open up a convenience store and sell alcohol beverages, for example, you need to get approvals from NLC. So NLC will actually tie the Service NL business registration to their liquor license now.
Okay.
So it's very important that if you are looking at commercial space, the first thing once you have the purchase done is to immediately go through Service NL.
Right.
And we have the forms here for that.
And what about like sometimes you see roadside vendors and
Yeah.
things like that?
Yeah, no, that's a good one. We have those permits here. We do them out for the year, for the month, for the week. You just, pop in. You don't need Service NL for that. So you just come in and just get a permit. Let us know where you're going to be doing it to.
Give us your plan type
Give
thing.
us your plan. Yeah. Yeah. That's
Cool.
all.
Any other types of permits that you can think of or anything else that you want to talk about today before we sign off?
No, one thing is that if you have questions of permits, please reach out. There's no such thing as a bad question with that stuff. I know some people are sometimes kind of nervous or hesitant to ask, but we're here to, help you develop it in the right way. And we're here to help. So whatever you need from the town, just, come in, sit down. We can even come out and do a site visit with you just to show us, what you plan on doing. And we don't mind doing that as well.
Well, very good.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Matt. I just want to thank you for coming in,
Yes,
giving
well,
us
thanks
a
for
little
having me.
bit more information about how things work here at the
Yeah.
town with regards to developments and permits and all
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
other things that residents
Yeah.
are wondering about.
Awesome.
So thank you.
No
This
problem.
concludes this episode of Town Talk. Thank you very much, as I mentioned, to Matt Sims for joining us here in Chamber today. And this will wrap up our Town Talk for this edition. Thank you for listening and staying connected. Until next time.